And so the one change that DOGE made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
yes,
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. Anything.
Now let's talk about giant balls, because a guy named Big Balls is working with Elon Musk over at DOGE. And you might say, well, who is Big Balls? How did he get involved in DOGE? What's he doing with Elon Musk? What the high hell's going on here? Well, Jesse Waters sat down. They've done a couple of these where Fox is sitting down with some of the DOGE guys because they've been lambasted and said we're being told they're the worst people ever and they're all racist and everything else. It's a bunch of people, you'll see at a giant table in a conference room here, that are qualified to do all sorts of things. Many of these people, some of them happen to be quite young, but some of them are 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're cleaning out the waste of the government. One of them was named Big Balls. This got everybody on mainstream media to freak out and talk about Big Balls over and over and over again. Here's Jesse asking about Big Balls and what Big Balls was doing at work.
Who's Big Balls?
It's big.
That should be obvious.
Why do they call you Big Balls?
I just said it as my LinkedIn username.
Okay.
Well, people on LinkedIn take themselves like super seriously, and they're pretty adverse to risk. And I was like, well, I want to be neither of those things. So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
Yeah.
So what do you
LinkedIn
do?
is so cringe.
What does Big Balls do?
Right now, I'm working on some payment computer stuff. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste. And to do that, we started looking at the payment computers. And as mentioned earlier, there is no accounting of what payments actually go to in the payment computer. So you look at a specific line item, like $20 million, and you're like, okay, well, what is this money going to? And for the majority of payment systems, it's like, well, we don't really know.
All right, so that clip's good for a couple of reasons. First off, the sort of cringe or trolling culture, or that it's just some kid who grew up online and they all have their anonymous names or whatever, and he was just punking people because everyone on LinkedIn is so serious about everything they do. That's just an interesting, I guess you call that a generational or cultural part of this. But then what do you do? And then suddenly he gets real serious, right? It's not about his big balls anymore. It's suddenly what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm looking into the payment systems. And it turns out that we have these massive numbers, $20 million here. There's no receipts. Nobody knows what's going on. And this is what we are finding as fraud. So again, when they've been going after all the DOGE people, because someone was named Big Balls and somebody was 21 years old and everything else, they never go up, well, is what they've done illegal? Is what they've done immoral? Is what they've done corrupt or anything else? They're actually undoing the corruption. So what you end up seeing there, kind of really clever what he did. He got everyone to pay attention to his work because his name is Big Balls, and then it turns out he's doing some pretty good work. Here's a bit more on some of the craziness that they uncovered because the government has been running a giant money laundering operation, your money, for many, many years, and it's coming to an end.
Yeah. There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera. And so the one change that DOGE made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
yes,
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore.
One of the, I think, extreme examples of non-accountability in some cases has occurred at some of the small agencies. I think the Inter-American Foundation, IAF, is one of the agencies we visited where, they get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like, alpaca farming in Peru, improving
That's a real example.
Yes, that's the real description. Improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala.
Really?
Fruit jam.
And it goes on and on and on, guys. But of course, the key part of that is now you really can see when you hear it from the guys who are doing the uncovering. You can really see why the machine went crazy for that first month of Doge and why they wanted everybody to turn against Elon and why they wanted his Tesla charger stations burned down and why they wanted you to think he was a Nazi and were excited that his companies were struggling a little bit and everything else because he has uncovered their true evil. Their true evil was taking what was rightfully yours. Like, you should be pissed about this. It's your hard-earned money. They took it from you. They put it into a system that had no accountability whatsoever. They threw themselves parties in Vegas at Caesar's Palace. They spent money on alpaca farms in Peru and Guatemalan insane asylums. And it's like, that's not good. That's not what any of us signed up for.